Three of a kind. Is that gonna put us over? Just shy. Okay, that'll do it. Yeah, that's. Okay, what's the boss that I have coming up here?
Taylor.
Yeah, give me a minute. Must play 5 cards. Okay, that's not bad. What? I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of Balatro. What?
The show. The show started.
Shit.
Remember the podcast? The thing we're supposed to be doing? New Year's Eve? Yeah, that one.
My sincerest apologies. I may or may not have a problem.
It's an addicting game.
It is! Welcome to DEE CODE+, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the continuation. We're back. And welcome to the continuation of the New Year's DEE celebration ringing in the year 2025. My name is Taylor May, joined by the original host of DEE CODE, Omega Z. We are so back.
I'm here. You're so back. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. 2024 was a very interesting year for gaming in many different ways. We're going to focus today on sort of like the recap. We're going to be talking about the Game Awards. Basically, we're going to be talking about our initial reactions to that, and at the end, also, Ken will be presenting the official Digital Era top 10 games of 2024, including DEE Game of the Year. So stay tuned for that towards the end. But
I'm excited.
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited to hear your takes on some of those games. I took a look at your notes, and I'm really excited to hear everything that you have to say. But yes, welcome to the official resurrection of the DEE CODE podcast. I am your new official host, Taylor May, and I will be taking the reins of the show moving forward. Omega Z, obviously, still acting as co-host, will still have a very heavy hand in the show. We just want to talk a little bit about the format of the show moving forward. DEE CODE+ will be a monthly production. We will put one on the first Monday of each month, today being an exception because it is New Year's DEE, so we figured perfect place to debut it. But the purpose of the show, first Monday of each month, we will be looking back at the previous month's worth of gaming news, talk about everything that happened, give our hot takes. DEE CODE is known for its hot takes, so get plenty of those here. Don't you worry. Those aren't going anywhere. And obviously...
Like 380 barrage fire from an orbital bombardment.
C-130s wish they could pack that kind of firepower. It's like, oh, you have 105? That's cute. And then obviously, as the year progresses, if anything big happens that warrants immediate talking about, then we may arrange a sort of like emergency episode to get that out. But for the most part, expect monthly shows moving forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. Starting, of course, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Game Awards 2024. I know you had your own gripes about the show. Overall, it was a good production. Like strictly from a production standpoint, it was a good show this year. I was very happy with it.
I did like the flow of the show. I think this was probably the best show they've had in the 10 years that they've been doing this thing. This was the one without any major hiccups. It didn't feel fluffed out or full of like filler. Like it just was beat after beat after beat. Um, yeah, they just got it right this time in terms of how to handle the presentation part of it.
Or inappropriate run-ins. Yeah, I mean, like we all saw that security that they had there at the
Yeah,
foot of the stage. They were taking
yeah,
no chances.
yeah. They hired like linebackers. I want to know what they were shooting these guys because like whenever the camera panned and you saw the security, he looked like he was someone who could like take on Jelly Roll and slam that and slam him. Like
I mean, listen, the Dallas Cowboys needed something to do now that they've been eliminated from the playoffs. So,
yeah,
just
that
saying.
off season they're like you take two of the Dallas Cowboys and put them in Game Awards security.
Hey, at least they're getting work. At least they're getting work. So, because God knows they're not getting it in Arlington.
Yeah.
But I digress. So, So the Game Awards. Obviously, we'll get into the awards themselves here in a bit. I want to talk a little bit about some of the reveals that we saw. Particularly, there was one in particular that really caught my attention. Less so the game, and more so everyone's reactions to it. So,
Okay.
a couple years ago, whenever it was, when the trailer for Metal Gear Snake Eater, when that trailer got released, the internet exploded. Like, there were people actually in tears from happiness, like in their reaction videos, seeing this remake. I was never exposed to the Metal Gear franchise growing up, so I admittedly felt a little bit left out that I wasn't able to share in that experience the same way that they could. Obviously, I was very excited. I knew that this was a very big deal that this was happening, but
Right.
I didn't really understand it on on a personal level because I'd never played the games. Obviously, I know that they're very special to many people. I know, like Mario in particular, I know that Metal Gear will always hold a very special place in your heart.
Yep.
There was a similar effect that happened out of the Game Awards this past December, and that was the Okami sequel reveal trailer. And seeing the internet, again, the exact same type of reaction that people had to the Snake Eater trailer. And again, Okami was one of those games that I was never exposed to, that I didn't grow up with it. I didn't grow up on video games, so there's a lot that
Hmm.
I missed out on growing up. Like, I missed out on like the whole Pokemon craze. I only just in the past couple of years officially played and finished my very first Pokemon game, and it was Shining Pearl. It was one of the remakes.
Hmm.
But I've decided officially that I'm not going to let myself fall victim to that retroactive FOMO again. So I have picked up Okami HD on Steam. I'm going to play it so I can actually prepare myself properly and emotionally for the Okami sequel, because it looks really good and I really want to be able to experience it properly.
Yeah, I mean they're great games. And that's one of the things that I have really come to appreciate about the current generation of gaming. It's also a complaint I have where it's like we want brand new ideas, we want new IPs, we want new games, but at the same time, there's a whole plethora of gamers out there who haven't really had a chance to experience some of these games when they first came out. So when we see a lot of like the remasters and the remakes and stuff like that, there's always like two different crowds. There's the crowd that's like, "Yeah, let's go," and then there's the crowds like, "Why?" Um, Okami is one of those games where I'm very much in the "Yeah, let's go" because I played Okami when it originally came out, fell in love with the game. The HD remake is fantastic, and the fact that it's getting a sequel with its original creator at the helm back at Capcom is one of the reasons why it's very huge. So if you don't know who Hideki Kamiya is, he's basically the guy who created Devil May Cry. He's responsible for Beautiful Joe. He's responsible for the Wonderful 101. He is a super talented uh, director and creator and designer. He just makes really good games. So that's another reason why it has hype. Because something like Okami didn't feel like his wheelhouse. He's always done these crazy action games, and Okami was like the first one that was put into the adventure. It's very much a like a Legend of Zelda styled game. Um, and just the way he took his design MO basically and threw it into that game. It's why the game is so beloved. Um, and it getting a sequel just has immense amounts of hypes. Counterpoint to Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, as excited as I am about it being a Metal Gear fan, I'm also very worried at how Konami is going to treat this game, especially given their relationship with Hideo Kojima.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very much in the camp that like if the remake totally omits any mention of Kojima, I don't care. I don't care how good it looks. I don't care how good it plays. I'm not gonna deal with it.
Honestly, fair enough. Like, I might end up picking it up at some point just so I can experience Metal Gear in modern day engine, modern day graphics, still be able to experience the story. Um, but I can completely understand because obviously, like, the absolute mastermind that is Kojima with the stuff that he puts out, like, it's insane. like that,
Yeah,
that that man that man's a narrative genius.
he is one of the very few gaming auteurs that are out there. Like every single thing he puts out is such great quality. Um, it's fitting that we're talking about this on our Game of the Year episode when we rightfully gave Death Stranding Game of the Year, and I know that that was a point of contention, and it was just one of those games that people didn't immediately get, but we did. Like I sat there and I played it, and I was like, this game is special, and it's just funny how the following year, because it was put on Steam, the following year was also the pandemic. That game took on a whole different meaning for everyone who played it and anyone who took a look at it. So Kojima's just crazy. He does great stuff. I'm excited to see any of the projects that he's working on. Maybe we'll get Death Stranding 2 in 2025. And then all those other projects that were announced on previous Game Awards show episodes. He has that game that he's working on with Jordan Peele. We'll see what comes out of that.
Oh yeah, that looks interesting. I can't wait to see the end product of
Hmm.
whatever that is because like, you're putting together. You're putting the minds of Hideo Kojima and Jordan Peele together on the same project. Only good things can come of that. And I am so
Yeah,
excited to see what they've been cooking up.
let them cook.
Let them cook, indeed. All right, getting into the Game Awards themselves, just briefly looking over the categories. Astrobot taking Game of the Year and Best Game
Yay!
Direction. Um, very well earned from what I've seen. I know, Ken, you scored a personal victory in the Games for Impact category with Neva taking home that award.
Hmm.
Uh, Balatro. Okay, no. Let, let's talk about Balatro for a second. Let's actually take a second to talk about this game. We're talking about a game that was released by an indie dev who expected 6 people to buy it.
Hmm.
And throughout the year, it exploded to become one of the single most popular indie roguelike games on the market, because it is a roguelike,
Yep.
taking home Best Indie, Best Debut Indie, and here's the kicker, Best Mobile Game. Balatro, this silly poker roguelike game, beat out Genshin Impact, an absolute titan in the mobile game industry, and Balatro beat them out. Eat your heart out, miHoYo.
It's just one of those things that I always chalk off as like when a unique idea comes out and it's polished and it's well done and it's released to the masses, word of mouth helps so much. And I think that's something that helped with this game because everyone talked about how addicting this game was. I'm a big card game guy, so when I heard there was like, yeah, it's like poker and solitaire, but it's a roguelike, and I was like, you have my curiosity. And then I downloaded it, $10. I was like, you know what? It's not $10, whatever. I'm gonna throw it. And just like Vampire Survivors, I was just like, one more run, one more run, one more run. My stop's coming up, one more run. Um, Incredibly addicting game, and it's always funny to see the reactions when games like this get noticed or win awards and stuff like that. People who like scratch their heads, and it's like, yeah, there's other stuff out there. Like, take your mind, open it a little bit, and you'd be surprised the type of gaming experiences you can open yourself up to if you just play some stuff that's outside of the box once in a while. Um, Balatro is just one of those games where it's like it took something that already existed and another thing that already existed, and then kind of like put them in a blender, and this was the product that we got. And it's such a unique idea with playing cards. Like, of
Yeah.
all the things that you can make something this original with, playing cards. It wasn't its own card game. They said, here's your stack of 52. We're going to give you these RPG like stuff. You build up as you play through the game, and you play poker and solitaire to win.
Mario
Make
pointing out
numbers go burr.
Mario pointing out, will it blend gaming edition? But actually, the thing that really appealed to me with Balatro, and I've said this before, I am a very numbers oriented person. So in a game where number go burr, it's Balatro tickles my tism in just the perfect way that it's like I cannot put this game down. It's I'm constantly, and now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, now I'm trying to science this thing where it's like, okay, what are the best jokers to use? What should I pass up? What's the best order to put these jokers in? Should I focus more on mult cards? Should I focus more on glass cards? What are the best tarot cards that I should be using? What's the best hand? It's so much. There's so much thought that goes into this game that you wouldn't think does on the surface, but then you actually get into it and you're like, oh my god, I get it.
Yeah, it's just the best thing about it is it's such a great pick up and play game. Like, even someone who's never played a video game before would enjoy something like Balatro. Um, and that's something that people need to keep in mind. It doesn't just have to be something that's pre-existing. It doesn't have to be, these super mega AAA games. Sometimes baby's first game is something simple like this.
Yeah.
You look at things like Candy Crush. Vampire Survivors was one that people who never really played games like that were like, hey, this is fun. Like, this is what video games is like. And we just look at them and nod and go, yes, that's exactly what gaming is like.
It's what gaming is supposed to be like. It's
Yeah,
supposed
it's
to be
supposed to be
fun.
fun. At the end of the day, it is a game.
Moving on down the list, best community support went to Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios. Very well deserved. Best ongoing game, of course, went to a new favorite game of ours here over at Digital Era, Helldivers 2 from Arrowhead Game Studios.
It's the game that keeps on delivering.
It really is, because, and again, it's one of those games that's actually very, honestly, I think it's very player friendly in that it's very easy to get into. It's very easy to understand. The objectives are fairly clear cut. It's easy to rank up and to level up to get those newer stratagems, get those newer weapons. You level up by playing the game. There are no special oh, you have this that you can get, but you got to do this super crazy thing that really only favors seasoned players. There's none of that. They make it accessible to as many people as possible. And there's not a whole lot of games that really do that anymore. So, as someone who had never played Helldivers until recently, loading in and getting into like my first mission with the rest of D crew on happy hour, it's like it clicked instantly. It's like, okay, I understand what is happening. I understand what I need to do. So there's not a lot of games that really do that anymore. So
Especially in the live service area of gaming, a lot of these games tend to focus more on how can we squeeze as much money out of our player base as possible, and they lose sight of what a game is supposed to be. You're supposed to have fun with playing this. It's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. We understand that companies like money. Um, Gamers
hell,
are
I
not
like
dumb.
money. So, but relatable. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, gamers are not dumb. And the thing that I have always said repeatedly, for those of you who are new to this show, if you could look back and listen to, or watch some of our older episodes that are on the YouTube, I think we have a few out there. I always say that when it comes to the live service genre, your success is determined on how well you respect the player's time and how well you respect their money. And if you respect those two things, people will give you the money and they will keep playing your game. Um, the classic example that I always go back to, something like Destiny. Destiny is one of those games where they flip flop on that issue left and right. And when players don't feel like their time or their money is being respected, you see what's happening in Destiny, where player counts are low. There's a lot of complaints. And then things just happen the way they do. And then when Destiny is doing it right, people are happy. And it literally boils down to that respect of players' time and players' money. And you will find that the live services that are still around, still popular, they do that to some degree. No one's perfect, but Helldivers is really good. Helldivers is like, we understand that people are working hard. People may not have all the time in the world, so they created a game and they balanced it in such a way that you can crack out on it for like 2 months and then not play for 4 or 5 months. And then when you come back, it feels like you didn't miss anything. That is the sign of a great live service game.
Could not agree more. Scrolling down the list, let's take a look here. Astrobot taking home two more, best action adventure game and best family game. I know there were some choice words during the Game Awards stream here on Digital Era about what constitutes a family game.
Yeah,
But
I don't, I don't know why Mario Party was even on that list.
all that game does
That's
is
not a
end
family game.
friendships.
That game ends friendships and destroys families. That is not a family-friendly game. But
Hell,
I, one of the things that I realize is when it comes to the best family game category for the Game Awards, it's their easy way of just throwing a Nintendo title out there. Like they're just like, this is not gonna win anything. Let's give it a category. So they toss a Nintendo title in there. It's like family.
basically. Helldivers 2 taking home best multiplayer game, well deserved. Most anticipated game going to Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm a big player of GTA 5. I generally only ever play I play a lot of GTA online, but it's almost like exclusively like with friends or like with my crew. I don't play in online lobbies cuz those can get it's hackers everywhere. Um but I'm really going to be interested to see how well this does considering how long Rockstar has been able to squeeze money out of GTA 5. It has been their cash cow for when did GTA 5 come out?
Almost 10 years ago.
Like there are not many titles that can do that.
No.
So the fact that the fact that GTA has stood as a testament to, honestly, if nothing else, one of the most loyal fan bases that you're ever going to see for a multiplayer game like that. I'm very curious to see how well GTA 6 is going to perform and how well it's going to be received by the community. Like, is it going to be enough of the same that they're going to like it? Is it going to be too different? Is it going to be just different enough? There's still a lot of unknowns. So I'm I'm cautiously optimistic because I want it to be good. I want to be able to play it and enjoy it. But it's like at the same time they've been doing the same thing for so long. It's when they now trying to move into something new is it's really gonna come down to whether or not they're gonna stick the landing, I think.
Yeah, I wish I had something more to say about Grand Theft Auto. Like younger me loved these games, and then as I got older, it just didn't really resonate with me after a while. Vice City was like the last one I really like sat through and enjoyed. San Andreas was kind of like meh, and then Five was another one where I was like, not Five. There was San Andreas, um, Four proper. I was like, Five, and I think I just kind of like outgrown that type of game to a degree. It's immensely popular. I'm not trying to say that it's not a badly designed game. It's just this is one of those things I look at and I go, you know what? I really think that I this is not for me anymore. Um, Kudos to what it does because the game sells phenomenally. It garners a huge community of fans. They update it very frequently to keep those fans happy. So good on them for that. I just it's no longer an interest of mine.
Honestly, fair enough. I know I've had plenty of games like that myself over the years where they used to be my favorite thing and then just over time I either get burned out on it or my interests shift into something else. And I've also found usually those games over the years I will come back to eventually, just either out of like curiosity or maybe out of feeling nostalgic or something like that. But I can definitely relate to that. I like Minecraft is a big one like that
Hmm.
for me. Like I will go from not touching Minecraft for 9 months to then it is the only thing I play for the next three. So again,
Yeah.
it's just kind of that it comes and goes for me, but I completely understand where you're coming from. The other category I really wanted to talk about here: best adaptation. Every single one of these could have won this award, and I would have said well deserved. Fallout, Arcane,
Hmm.
Knuckles, Like a Dragon Yakuza, and Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. All of them solid adaptations. I think that was one of the ones I legitimately could not call it. I had no idea who it was going to go to because all of them were solid picks.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt it would have gone to Fallout because out of all of them, they're all great adaptations. I think Fallout got the win because it was the one adaptation that furthered the story because it's legitimately a sequel to four. Like it takes place after it, and I thought that was interesting to place a show in that category when you have something like Arcane, which is a prequel. The Tomb Raider, I was a little mixed on that one. I feel like they just threw it up there just to have an extra nominee. I wasn't a big fan of that particular show. Um, and what was the other one? Oh my God,
Knuckles
like
and Like a Dragon were the other two.
Knuckles was, Knuckles was part of the whole Sonic movie verse thing,
Yeah.
so that was kind of like whatever to me. Um, and then Yakuza was okay. It wasn't anything great. Like Fallout was the one to me. I was like, this is great. Like, and
Personally,
that's like last year with The Last of Us. So I was just like, there's no way this one's losing.
Personally, I kind of wish it had gone to Arcane, but then again, I'm biased because I absolutely love that show. Um,
Mhm.
I am also an unapologetic filthy Jinx main in League of Legends proper. So Jinx, Jinx is Bay. It's like that's my little psychopath.
Yep.
But yeah, no, just overall, really, really solid show. And then, oh right, how could I forget? How could I forget? Let's talk about the Game of the Year nominees as a whole, shall we? Shall we open up that can of
Oh,
worms?
I'm ready to open that can of worms like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Give me two of them, smack them over the head, and let me guzzle it down my throat.
Game of the Year nominees included Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor Fantasio. Metaphor Refantasio. I had to
Mhm.
reread that a couple times. And Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, a DLC.
Yeah.
Why are we nominating DLCs for Game of the Year now?
Um, I
Please enlighten me as to why this is a thing.
so when you have to point out your own rules for selecting criteria to have the general public understand why you even selected a nominee for Game of the Year, you did something wrong. Um, I don't think in any sense of the word a DLC should be nominated for Game of the Year. You can probably put it as like an honorable mention or mention it in your if you're doing your top 10 list or whatever. Like DLC one, DLCs require the base game off rip. It's not a sequel. It's an added on to the original game. This was effectively nominating Elden Ring again. That's completely unfair. Elden Ring already won the Game Award. Can't win again. Like this is extra content that requires the base game. Just shouldn't be there. Um, I also don't think like was the year wasn't that bad. There were a lot of choices that definitely got overlooked for the Game Awards. Um, but again, this is one of those years where we have always felt that the Game Awards, while they try to promote the narrative of, here's how we treat gaming with respect, here's how we present it to the culture to make it mean more than just silly baseless entertainment. Um, at the same token, and at the same time, we understand that because it's Jeff Keighley and because they're beholden to advertisers and things like that, a lot of these nominees are because, such and such company is using it as an opportunity for advertising. So they're like, here's some money. We're gonna put a commercial in, and then hey, nominate our game. See if the people vote for it. Um, this is one of the years where it really felt like that stench of that notion was heavily adamant in the atmosphere. Like I went down through all these lists and I was like, somebody should scream, "We paid you money, highlight us."
Mihoyo.
Yeah,
If they wanted to make a category for best DLC, well within their right. Perfect. Do it. There's a lot of really good DLC that gets put out every single year for multiple different titles. It would have been perfect. And honestly, I'm surprised we don't have that yet. Additionally, the Elden Ring DLC could have fit in well with best game direction, best narrative, best art direction, best score and music, best audio design, best performance. Like literally any of those, it would have been okay. Because maybe the score and music, the soundtrack for this DLC in particular, was just absolutely stellar. Audio design, maybe they did something a little bit different for the DLC than they did with the base game. Same for art direction. Best narrative, maybe this DLC tells an absolutely incredible story that it just stands out in a league of its own. Would have been perfect for best narrative in that case. Do not nominate DLC for Game of the Year. Why? It's I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss for words. It's that effing stupid. I'm at a loss for words. Like
Yeah, it's just
as soon as I saw the nominations, I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
I don't know. It was definitely one of the few missteps that this Game Awards had.
My hope is that with the very negative reception that they received because of that nomination, my hope is that that won't happen again. That they will learn their lesson and at the very least just make a best DLC category. That is the safest thing to do in my opinion.
It is, but it's one of those categories that like you can't consistently give every year because you run into the risk of what if there's that one year where no DLCs come out.
Then you throw it into any of the other categories that I mentioned where it would honestly rightfully belong.
For sure.
So, but I mean, like you said, like a lot of these, like the Game Awards and Keeley, a lot of times are like beholden to that corporate advertising for them to pay for a commercial and then maybe pay to be nominated. You know who's not beholden to that stuff? We're not.
Nope.
So
But
with that in
seriously, we
mind,
wouldn't mind it.
did you want to start with the honorable mentions first, or do you just want to go ahead and kick off with the top 10?
No, we're gonna do the honorable mentions because we say there's a top 10, but in reality it's a top 20. Uh,
All right, let me actually get my notes
um,
pulled up here so I can follow along with you. Give me 1 second here.
yeah. So this following these are 10, right? I think I did I counted right here. This looks like about 10 games. These following 10 are our honorable mentions. These are the games that were just not quite there to making our top 10, but definitely worthy enough of being mentioned. Hence the term honorable mentions. First and foremost, while we're on the subject of DLCs, let's talk about those DLCs that came out this year. Because look, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Earth Tree was amazing. It's a fantastic DLC, great expansion to the Elden Ring universe, and rightfully deserving of being mentioned in a best of 2024. Because you don't get DLCs like this all the time, and when they come out, they truly are very special. So yeah, our first honorable mention for great value DLC, Shadow of the Earth Tree. Uh, and then another one because I love Destiny, and this year saw the release of the Final Shape expansion, the culmination of 10 years of Destiny. The Avengers Endgame of Destiny finally came out. The big bad, the one major big bad of the overarching narrative across 10 years of game, finally reared its head, and the Guardians took to it with a very emotional story that saw the return of Nathan Fillion's Cade 6, who was long thought dead from a previous DLC. Um, Fantastic way to end the game. I think there was a nice degree of finality with this DLC. Um, Destiny is no stranger to its ebbs and flows and the problems that it tends to have, DLC in and DLC out. But for the most part, this one was very good. We saw player counts kind of reduce a couple of months after the DLC dropped, and that's for good reason. A lot of people walked away from the story and said, "Oh, yeah, this was a good ride. I'll wait for Destiny 3," even though they're continuing with other expansions into 2025 for those that are staying around. Um, so you have like a good point for anyone who's been with the game from the beginning to now to kind of like say, hey, I'm going to put this sword down and play other stuff. But they also were smart enough to leave little narrative threads about what might come for the future of Destiny. So it'll be fun to see what happens in 2025 with this game. Um, but if you are a Destiny fan, the Final Shape was fantastic. A great DLC and a good way to cap 10 years worth of narrative and story and experiences of playing with people around the world and whatnot. So it's really good.
Something Bungie's always been really good with has been their narrative storytelling. I mean, if you just look back at the Halo franchise with everything they did, obviously leading up to Halo 4, because that wasn't theirs, but
Hmm.
like Bungie knows how to tell a good story when they want to. So,
Yes, for sure. Good stuff. Moving down the list, we have our award for an old dog can learn new tricks after all, and we give our honorable mention to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Um, Call of Duty games are like a broken clock. They're one, they're generally good every couple of years as opposed to a clock. I don't know. That analogy went somewhere that I didn't think it would go. Point being is that once in a while, sometimes there's a really good Call of Duty game campaign. And I get it. Who plays Call of Duty for the campaign? People like me. Like I like the story sometimes. Um, but Black Ops 6 had a phenomenal story campaign. Um, but also in the terms of the multiplayer, this was the first one to have a whole new movement engine, a lot of different gunplay styles come into it. So it's no longer same game year in and year out. We have like a whole new suite to play around in, and we're probably going to see this one get milked over the next 10 years. Um, but it's kind of nice to point out that sometimes they do it right, and it's usually when you least expect it. Yeah, Call of Duty. Anyway, moving on. Uh, Speaking of beautiful games that do things, our She Kicks High award goes to Stellar Blade, which came out earlier this year. Beautiful game that not much really can be said about. It's just one of those games that plays pretty decently. It's almost Souls-like. It's almost like a Devil May Cry game. Didn't quite know where it wanted to be, which is why I only put it on an honorable mention and I didn't make our top 10. Um, but outside of that, very well produced game, awesome music. The gameplay when it clicks works. Story not quite there. Meh, it's there. But I wanted to give it a mention because it's a pretty decent game. Just not that great. Uh, in a return to form, Ubisoft finally decided to give us a Prince of Persia game. Not one, but two Prince of Persia games this year. And the one that I want to highlight is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which was a 2D Metroidvania uh, with the Prince of Persia universe. And it's a shame that this game didn't really sell that well. But for anyone who is a fan of Prince of Persia and is also a fan of side scrollers and is also a Metroidvania fan, um, this is the game for you. Like, if you've been crying for something like this, this is one game, and there's one that made our top 10, which we'll get to in just a second, if you are into those really good Metroidvanias. Um, yeah, I'm just glad that Ubisoft remembered Prince of Persia existed.
it's also worth noting Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown took home the award for innovation in accessibility at the 2024 Game Awards.
Yes, it did. Um, Going down the list, we have the best game you ignored. So every year, there's always that one game that I really love, and everybody else looks at me when I talk about how good it is. They're like, "What? What are you talking about?" And this is the best game you ignored. This award is every year, and that's Banisher's Ghost of New Eden, which comes to us from Don't Nod Studios, who were the original creators of the Life is Strange series. They're also the developers of that oft niche classic Vampire. They just write really good stuff, and Banishers, on narrative effort alone, fantastic story. It's about this husband and wife couple who are basically medieval Ghostbusters, and they go to this particular area in the New World to find out what's going on with this really freaky call that they get. They're like, hey, we know there's this big ghost there, and stuff hits the fan, and husband and now dead wife have to work together to uncover the mystery in New Eden. Very great game. If you happen to find it on sale or interested in a really good ghost story that is an open world game, highly recommend Banishers. Don't sleep on this one. This is like there's always that one sleeper hit every year, and I think Banishers was the one for this year.
The whole concept of like medieval Ghostbusters, that whole idea, that just sounds metal as hell. And I actually really kind of wanted to take a look at this.
Yeah, it's really cool because like it's very like you get a sword, you get a because it's um kind of like in that new world territory, so they have like old musket gun that you got to reload the old-fashioned way,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's just really good. I'm always a sucker for when two genres kind of mix like that. Like I always felt that the horror genre works well when it's put in a setting that you normally don't associate with horror. So like um whenever they do horror movies set in World War II, like those type of movies always appeal to me. Or horror movies during the Industrial Revolution, or horror movies set in like cowboy times. Those are the type of things that I'm like, oh, this is really cool because there's so much really interesting stuff that you can do there with the story and everything. Um, and this is one of those games that's like that. Uh, we're jumping into some of the indie territory, so I'm gonna kind of like sort of speed run through these, because I don't want to take up too much time. I really want to get to our top 10. But in the indie category, there's a couple of games that I wanted to highlight in no particular order. One that really stood out to me was an open world exploration game called Caravan Sandwich. This is an open world game where a sister is searching for, well, a young woman is searching for her sister, and she basically kind of like explores this town that she knew her sister went to. She interacts with the people that work there, and she gets to find out a lot of things about her sister that she didn't know before. So it's kind of like this sort of coming of age story. It does deal with LGBTQ issues, and it's a fantastically told narrative in such a small space. And you just drive around in your little caravan and go exploring and find things out. It's really cool. Awesome story and narrative. If I can liken it to any other open world games that I've mentioned on this podcast before, it's very much in that vein of like Sable. Um, there's another game that came out. Rhyme was kind of had like that open world exploration feel with metaphorical storytelling. A really good game. Highly recommended. Another game was a game called Indica. In this game, you play a nun who can talk to the devil. And if that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know what else. But it's basically how she deals with religion and what religion can mean to someone when you're tempted by both sides. It has a really fantastic story of how she deals with the fact that she can literally talk to the devil, and she's in a covenant and things that she goes through, and the story that comes out of that, and the mystery that comes out of that, and the resolution of all that. Very powerful game. Highly recommended. Especially for people who may not be the most religious or just curious about a really good religious story that involves religion. Indigo is fantastic. Another one that I thought was really, really good, and this one almost made our top 10, and that's mouthwashing. This is a kind of like puzzle survival game that deals with this crew that's on a ship, and their ship crashes. The captain is basically broken, like he's bandaged up, he's burned, he's scarred up, and if you've ever dealt with helping a sick person or helping a sick family member, or dealt with family in the hospital and stuff like that, this game really taps into that emotion, while you also figure out the mystery of what caused the crash and everything. And the reason why it's called mouthwashing is they were sent on this transport to deliver something, and when they go through the packages, like, hey, we gotta survive, all they find is a bunch of mouthwash. And so they're like, well, mouthwash has alcohol. Let's use it as disinfectant. And then they're like, oh, we're running out of things to drink. Maybe we should drink mouthwash a little bit. And yeah, it just goes crazy. Um, Excellent game if you can find it. I think it's on Steam. And fantastic narrative with a really freaky story. Another indie game that I really liked was The Plucky Squire. And this is a game that is just so joyful to play through. And It's very imaginative, and it's just such a great adventure to play through. Um, One thing that I really liked about Plucky Squire was that it really makes a good point of how storytelling can affect people. Um, and that goes without saying, Plucky Squire is a great adventure game. Um, Rounding off our honorable mention before we get into our top 10 is the best movie you didn't play, and that's going to be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Um, I think we found our way to keep Indiana Jones franchise alive. We don't need any more Harrison Ford movies. We could just make games and throw Troy Baker as Indiana Jones and keep it going. But Machine Games, who's no stranger to making games where it's also to punch Nazis in the face. Um, Indiana Jones, fantastic title. It's currently on Xbox, and it will be coming to PlayStation later in next this year now. So that's our honorable mentions. So we get to the big gravitas, the coup de resistance. Um, Here's our top 10 of 2024. Coming into the number 10 spot, we already mentioned this earlier on the show. It's the most addictive card game you can play on your phone and or tablet and or gaming device of choice, and that's Balatro.
Yeah,
Um,
baby.
Balatro is a lot of fun. It is an amazing card game. It is great for anyone who is even remotely curious about getting into games. And anytime a game comes out that says, hey, we're for everybody, deserves notice, deserves mention. A lot of games like this have come out before. We're talking about Vampire Survivors, we're talking about Untitled Goose Game, just games that anyone can play. And because they're that easy to pick up and learn and figure out, and then as you play it, you get better with it. And that's Balatro for you. Like, anything you want to ask, Taylor? Add to Balatro, or are we good to go on to our number
I could rant about Balatro all night. Let's just go ahead and move down the list.
9? All right. In the number 9 spot, I'm going to cheat a little bit just because I am a fan of this particular series,
How
and
dare you?
I'm sorry. But two games came out in this franchise last year, as well as a really weird television show thing that was kind of okay. Overall, the actual award goes to Silent Hill 2, the remake from Bloober Team. This was a fantastic remake from top to bottom. They fleshed out the game a little bit more. They did it justice. A lot of people were worried because Bloober Team isn't necessarily known for making the best games, but they did such a fantastic job with Silent Hill 2. While we're on the subject of Silent Hill 2, Konami also released a free game called Silent Hill: The Short Message. And it's not a terribly long game. You can probably beat it in an hour and a half, 2 hours. Um, but I wanted to mention it because Silent Hill in general is just such a franchise that is important to gaming. And the fact that we got a remake of one of the best Silent Hills ever made, and this new one that, from what I remember, did like 10 million downloads in a couple of weeks. Very
Damn.
good. Yeah, it was fantastically well received. And if you haven't checked it out, it's I know it was free on PlayStation. I don't know if it was on any of the other Steam Epic type sites, but I highly recommend it. Just a fair warning, it does deal with themes of suicide. It does deal with bullying. Um, and the writing is because it stars a young teenage female. The writing is very much in that young adult style of speaking. So everyone, I know one of the critiques was like, "Why does she talk like that?" And it's like because she's a teenager. So just one of those things to look out for with Silent Hill. But Silent Hill 2, fantastic. Hits our number 9 spot because it was just that good. Like I love when remakes do more than what a remake should do, and that's why we have Silent Hill on this list. Coming in at the number 8 spot for a studio's first game, this is an impressive first effort. And this comes from a Chinese studio. And of course, we're talking about Black Myth Wukong, which was a phenomenal, phenomenal take on the journey into the West story, full of awesome references to Chinese mythology. This is basically Chinese God of War. Like I don't know what more I can say about this game. There were some weak points, which is why it's not higher on the list. But it definitely is worthy of mention because, like I said, this was the studio's first game ever. And usually, most studios' first games don't really, they have something wrong with them. But like to see the art design, the narrative effort that went into this game, the gameplay that went into this, and to be like, this was your first effort. Whoa! I am excited to see what this studio does more. Black Myth Wukong is available on most systems. It was digital only. It is now available for physical release. Um, and I highly recommend it if you're into God of War style games. It's not so much a Souls like, even though it does play like one. So if you're not a Souls fan, I would caution you. It's kind of like in between Bloodborne, God of War type gameplay. Fantastic title though, and worthy of our top 10.
That part I did not know. I didn't realize that this was that studio's first ever game, and for that first game to be Black Myth Wukong, like,
Mm-hmm.
good lord, they
Yeah.
bullseye.
Sometimes you get that first home run, you first at bat, and you just go, and it's gone, and it's great.
Well
I
done.
can't wait to see what they do more.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, these next two kind of go hand in hand, and we're talking about some very awesome RPGs that came out this year. The first one I want to mention comes in at our number seven spot from Atlas, the makers of Persona and others games of that ilk. Comes Persona with extra steps. I'm kidding. I'm talking about Metaphor ReFantazio, which is um there are definitely some similarities to this in Persona. But you can tell that this was one game. This was like one of the games that they really wanted to make, but it didn't really fit entirely into Persona or their Shin Megami Tensei games. So they were like, we have to make it its own thing, and it shows. Like the gameplay is fantastic, the music is awesome, the art style is great, stories. Eh, stories all right. I've never been a real big fan of the Persona stories. But I have to acknowledge a good Atlas RPG when one does come out. Metaphor Fantasio is well worth your time. If you're an Atlas fan, you probably already bought this game. If you're not an Atlas fan and you've always been curious about Atlas RPGs, go play a Persona instead and then play this game. um, but you'll have a good time. Uh, and next in the RPG genre, Square Enix just makes bangers. We know this. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is just, I don't know how this game got made. Chiefly because of the size of this game, the amount of stuff you can do in it. I was just like, how did this team do it? I am flabbergasted at how good this game is. Of course, it continues the remake storyline, which did change some things and kind of changes the overall Final Fantasy VII story. You have to play it, so trust me when I say this. This
Yeah.
is not a one-for-one remake of the Final Fantasy VII story that most would probably know. Um, but it's building up to its trilogy. The third part's coming up at some point. But what we have here in the middle effort blew me away. Like I was shocked at how much stuff there was to do in here. Like just to go, like we all remember how much fun we had in the Golden Saucer, right? Like if you played Final Fantasy VII, the Golden Saucer took up a lot of time. There were so many mini games. There's that throughout the entire game. But generally, like when you get to the Golden Saucer, it is a phenomenal experience. I remember how excited I was when I got to it in the original 1997 release of Final Fantasy VII, and then when we got to it in this game, I was just I swelled up with so much emotion. Well worth it. Like you can't go wrong with most Final Fantasies, and the Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy that we're about to embark on. I am excited to see where this goes. Like the story is just out there, so out there. All right, getting into our top five, and these next two are creme de la crop of the indie revolution that we love here at Digital Era Entertainment. Up first is another Metroidvania game. This one, um, there's not a lot that I can really say without spoiling what this game is about. But the title of the game is Animal Well, and it's a Metroidvania. And you know, in Metroidvanias, you usually get powers to kind of like explore the rest of the area. But what if I told you that these powers are based off of animals? Um, if you've played Hollow Knight, if you've played Dead Cells, if you've played Castlevania, like any of these Metroidvanias that we know and love, um, this one is just so phenomenally well done. Has a fantastic, heartbreaking story. And I would chalk this level of story up to that of like Ori and the Blind Forest, um, or our next title, which is coming in our number four spot, and this is why I put it over Animal Well, and that's Neva. Neva comes to us from the creators of Greece, who you may remember we championed some years ago. And that had a heartfelt story, metaphorical take on the themes of loss and grief with a woman who loses her voice, and you progress through her journey as she tries to regain her voice, and you see the metaphorical analogy kind of break down in the background and on the adventure she goes through. This one's a little more in your face. Never stars a woman and her dog, and things happen where main dog dies, and then you're left with the puppy, and then you got to go on the adventure with the puppy, and the bond between the two characters shines over through this adventure. And this one's a little more action oriented, so you get to fight bad guys and stuff, as opposed to Grease, which was just kind of just a puzzle platformer. Um, Heartbreaking story. I love games that make me cry. Like I play and I go, that was an experience. And Never is one of those games that I highly recommend. Um, just wow. Like sometimes you just walk away from the game, and you know the meme where it's like the guy from Narcos, kind of like standing in the rain or whatever. It's one of those games.
Ah, yes, a game that will make you feel like Pablo Escobar standing in the rain. Can't wait.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's using the meme where it's like, oh, when there's always those memes when it's like what it feels like when you beat a game that affects your emotions, and it always has like these four pictures, and one of them is literally just like Pablo Escobar standing in the rain, like contemplating life. And I'm like, with the exception of the drug related stuff, I sympathize. Anyway, we're up to our top three. This is the podium finish, the top three games of 2024. Number three is my personal game of the year. Um, but this is a community effort, so when I created this list, got the feedback of everybody, I'm willing to take a feedback, a little feedback when I go, you know what? I get why this one's number two and that one's number one. But I do these lists and I get to fight for what I want. So I'm putting Space Marine 2 up there on the podium. Number three, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Warhammer fans are eating really good this year. They had a phenomenal episode in the recent Secret Level animated anthology show that aired. Henry Cavill is producing something for Warhammer 40k for an Amazon series. The tabletop miniatures has seen a resurgence in sales and popularity. Um, I myself got back into collecting that. I never collected the minis because they were just so expensive. But thankfully, McFarlane Figures, hashtag not sponsored, but please sponsor us, um, came out with a series of Warhammer 40k figures, little big ones. And I was like, buy, 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 buy. As a matter of fact, I even got into finding the minis. I got a little Warhammer guy on my
Aw.
bag.
The thing is,
um,
I was going to jump up and to run and to grab one of my Space Marine minis for this one, but I can't because I moved them over to the new apartment earlier this afternoon. So,
Um,
so I do not currently have them on hand. Like,
yeah.
no.
Warhammer is just fantastic. Their games tend to be hit or miss, but lately the games have been more hit than miss. We're talking about Warhammer Boltgun being an amazing boomer shooter. A couple of years back, we had Warhammer Inquisitor, which was basically Diablo. Um, Warhammer Shooter's Blood and Teeth is basically Metal Slug with the orcs. Great game. I highly recommend it. And then we have Space Marine 2, which is a sequel to Space Marine, which came out like 13, 15 years ago. I don't know. It's been a while. And we got to see the continuing adventure of Commander Titus in the Space Marine storyline. And the reason why this game is up there is not only is it just a very well done game, it's a horde action slash adventure game, and that's not a genre that normally would be a Game of the Year winner, but because they put it into the Warhammer universe and because they did so much well with the polish of the game, and because they also respected our money by giving us basically three games in one. Let me talk about that for a second. So we have the regular Space Marine single player campaign. While you go through this campaign, Titus is giving orders to this whole other squad that occasionally chimes in back and forth. And you hear some of the things they do. And it's one of those games where I was like, I'm playing through as Titus, and I'm like, oh, they took down a Helldrake and some other second. I was like, whoa, that sounds fun. I wish I could have seen that. So then you beat the campaign, and I'm like, oh, that's a good campaign. Let me try this co-op thing. And then you think the co-op is just going to be the single player campaign where you play as one of Titus's buddies. No, the co-op campaign is that whole other story I just talked about, where you get to play as the other guys while they're talking to Titus and Cole. So you get to see the awesome, cool stuff that they were doing throughout the game. I would have been fine with just those two things, but these guys saw fit to even add a PvP mode. It's not balanced. It's insanely unbalanced, but it's so much fun. I don't care. Like I don't. I'm not trying to like. There's nothing. There's no ranked reward system. It's just a PvP. They're like, if you want to play, it's here. Yeah, we didn't put much thought into it. Like every character is just ridiculously overpowered. Have fun. Um, but yeah, Space Marine 2 is a great time, and you should play it because the Emperor commands it.
For the Emperor.
For the Emperor. All right. Number two. Uh, don't be upset. This is just a little guy who loves PlayStation. Astronaut is an amazing game. Um, we went back and forth on this a lot. But at the end of the day, our number one game, which we'll get to in just a moment, does a lot, and then I'm gonna explain why. But let's talk about Astrobot. Um, the platform genre has seen a pretty good resurgence these past couple of years. If we go back to, was it 2017? 2017 was Mario Odyssey, I believe. Um, if we go back to then, we were at a point where indie games were doing a lot of really cool platformers that Nintendo woke up and was like, wait, they're doing what we do, and they're almost doing it better. Let's show them what we're made of. And then we got Super Mario Odyssey, which to me was like one of the best platformers ever made, and a true showcase of when you take a classic genre and you take new technology and you come up with something really, really amazing. Flash forward to a couple of years later when we give Psychonauts 2 Game of the Year, and we mentioned that like this is a platform game, but it's made for the older audience, and that's cool. And being that we are older gamers, that's kind of why I wanted it to get Game of the Year because it's like this type of genre isn't just for kids, it's can be for the older crowd. But the genre shines best when it's really for everyone. And that's something Astrobot does in spades. And I think it does it a little bit better than Mario Odyssey. Because it took what made Mario Odyssey so well and enhanced on it in so many different ways that we do not have enough time in this show to really go into what Afterbot does as a platform game. Um, but most importantly, it's also a celebration of PlayStation, which currently is celebrating its 30th anniversary. And if there's any game that could be just such a huge love letter to where it came from, and do it in such a way that it promotes nostalgia and it promotes joy and it makes people remember why video games are awesome. The little guy who loves PlayStation. It's Astrobot. All right. So now we go into our game of the year. We've mentioned it here and there, and if you're wondering what this game is, it should be no surprise. We've been streaming it recently. It's a game that has done a lot for the live service genre. And of course, our game of the year is Helldivers 2. Um, I have a lot of reasons of why this deserves Helldivers 2, and most chiefly is the fact that live service games have been getting very like heavily criticized. They've been seen as exploitive. They've been seen as a negative to the industry. They've been seen as unoriginal, unfun. They've just been seen as money grubby. And sometimes a developer exists and goes, "We hear you. We're gonna make something that's just fun. And yeah, we're gonna charge you for it, but we're not gonna ask you for more. We just want to give you this game so you can play it." And Helldivers 2 is one of those games. Um, I mentioned earlier in the show that live services are extremely successful when they respect players' time and they respect players' money. And that's something that this game does in spades. And it's one of the few games that has inspired other companies to do the MO of, hey, we got battle passes, no rush, they don't expire. So there's no FOMO. Um, the community behind this game is super passionate and super vocal. The developers actually listened to the community. When issues arose, they were taken care of almost immediately. A lot of other companies have faltered in this area. Any issues that are with the game technically linger on Sony more than the devs themselves. So kudos to Arrowhead because you guys just respect gamers, and this is a game that shows that you respect our time, you respect our money, and you respect the fact that we love it so much. Um, it's a case study on what happens when a live service is done right, and we've had live service games come out. I mentioned my love for Destiny, and Destiny wasn't the first live service game. Think about all the other like MMOs and things like that are out there. Destiny was kind of like the first one that made it really successful on console, and it was a very successful experiment. There were definitely things missing that prevent me from saying Destiny is one of the best things ever. Those things that didn't exist in Destiny, they are in Helldivers 2. And that's why Helldivers 2 is not just one of the greatest games we have played this year, it's our game of the year. Like, do it for democracy.
Absolutely. Do it for democracy. I know I have been. And
We've
again,
all been diving in.
and again, like I mentioned, I'm late to the party with Helldivers. I didn't start playing until only about maybe a week or two ago, and diving into it, no pun intended, just in the time that I have, it's like there's no learning curve. It's you hop in, you understand the mechanics, you understand how to play it, you understand what the objectives are, and it's that simple. It is a very player friendly game for all of the reasons you mentioned, and then some. It's a real diamond in the rough, I think, for games like that, because there's not a lot of games that really do that anymore, that make them that accessible to new players. Because the way you level up and get better gear is you play the game. There's no, And even on a grind, so to speak, you don't even really feel like that's that much of a grind because you actually level up in this game fairly quickly. Every time you level up, you get access to new stuff, you get access to new gear. The premium currency in the game, they actually make very accessible to get for
It's
free.
earnable.
Like, there's plenty of ways to get it for free. You don't have to pay a dime outside of the base game. And that
Yeah,
who does that anymore?
not a lot of developers do. And another, to add on to your point of the whole grind and leveling up thing, like one of the things that I really appreciate about this game is even if you aren't able to put that much time into the game, it respects the time that you do so with incremental upgrades here and there, that even early level weapons and stuff can still be used for your build, so to speak, to play even with the people that have everything, and you can still keep up with that. So it's, I think that's one of the better things that the game has, where yes, it's a live service game, but if you don't play for like a year and you come back to it after a year, you can still play the game. Like,
I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's been it's been an absolute experience. Definitely deserved the awards that it took home and was nominated for at the Game Awards, and certainly deserving of our Game of the Year here at Digital Era Entertainment. Just, it's such a fun game. Go play Helldivers. Go play Helldivers. I'm telling you right now, just go play Helldivers. Do it for democracy. There was something else I was going to mention, actually, and I think I might have brought this up to you before, but another game of mine it's a big favorite of mine that does similar things to Helldivers is, it's a little game called Super Animal Royale. I don't know how many people here have heard of it. Super Animal Royale is a free-to-play 2D battle royale game where you get to drop in and play as cute little animals, but they're cute little animals with guns. And it's just a really cute, really fun time. And the way that their battle pass system works is every new season that comes out, everyone gets access to that season's pass. You play matches, you level up your battle pass, you get really cool stuff. You get cool cosmetics. The other thing that they do, and again, this is something that I have never seen any other game like this do before. Any previous pass that they have put out, you can use premium currency to go into the game and purchase it, to run it side by side with that current season's battle pass. So you can have two passes running at the same time. So the current season's pass and then any past battle pass of your choosing. And you can pause them. And maybe you want to grind up a different one. You can switch them out at will. Completely eliminating that FOMO that comes with other games where it's like, oh, you gotta get on this pass this season, and if you don't complete it, too bad, you missed out on all that cool stuff. Super Animal Royale doesn't do that because, again, they are a game and they are a developer that respects the player's time and money. And again, there are ways in Super Animal Royale to earn premium currency in the game for free. You don't have to pay a dime. The base game is completely free to play. There is a premium version of the game that you can get that will unlock even more cosmetics and really cool stuff for you that is $15 on Steam. You pay $15, it's yours. But it's such a fun game. I might honestly recommend it for happy hour at some point just because it is free to play. It's really easy to drop in and out of. There's some really fun game modes outside of just the normal battle royale, but it's it Helldivers 2, bringing it back to our game of the year, runs almost off of that exact same format. It's easy to understand, it's easy to play, and their level up system is respectful of the player's time and money. And there's really just not many there's just not many games out there that do that anymore. So for those reasons alone, we highly recommend you strap on your boots, get into that pod, and dive for democracy. And that's about all I got to say on that.
That's our show.
That is our show. That is the return of the DEE CODE podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you've all been having a fantastic New Year's D. For those of you who are in the Discord, there is one more. I believe there's some offline events happening right now in our Discord down in the Tortilla Mania channel. I believe we're going to be watching some wrestling by the looks of it. I think Jace has something queued up there. Mm-hmm. But that's going to do it for us here on Digital Era Twitch for today. Thank you all so much again. And thank you to Lo-Fi Girl for providing the background music you've been hearing tonight. Their synthwave radio station on YouTube. Much obliged. Thank you so much for that. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, Image Anime, for their continued support. We have renewed our sponsorship with them through the year 2025. I believe... I might have just had it turned down real low. Discount Ship is the code you can use for free ground shipping on all in-stock item orders over $100 between now and January 1st, 2026. That code is good for a whole other year. So again, huge thank you to Image Anime for that. Check us out at digitaleraentertainment.com for more written content, articles, creator profiles, and more. You can also check out all of our socials. We're all over the place. We're posting stuff constantly, so you can follow us basically on whatever platform you happen to be on. Check out our merch site as well. Get you some swag to help support the channel even further. And of course, please do not forget to check out our upcoming wrestling-themed visual novel, Kokoro no Pro, the playable demo of which is available to play for free over on our Itch.io page. So please definitely go and check that out. I've played it myself. It's a lot of fun. I cannot wait for the full release of the game. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Ken, thank you so much for joining me for the return of DEE CODE and ushering in a new era of our New Game Plus for the show.
Glad to be back. And I will be honest, I have actually missed signing off on this. So I think if it's okay with you, I'll do the sign off and then we'll be good to go.
All yours, my friend. Do it.
All right. Everybody, we're back. Welcome to DEE CODE Plus, first episode of many more to come throughout the year. But as always, until next time, you've been decoded.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us across social media for updates. Thanks for watching!